had the Reuben one time. It was like, how do you serve the Reuben?
It was a mess.
And
Yo
also,
iba a
like,
almorzar
the
hace
people
rato y
look
que
strong.
no, ya voy a...
Yes, that's true.
You don't like serve it
Me
to
estaba
anyone.
muriendo de
Right.
hambre.
You didn't like it or you don't?
No, no comí. Me vine porque es
You're not a
una...
big fan?
No. Sauerkraut.
No. And the Russian dressing too.
Oh, yeah.
Not a fan.
Sí mandaron.
Caliente, sí, yo sé, ya. Realmente no estamos en la lista de los afortunados.
Bueno, a mí por primera vez me mandaron una, pero el año pasado nunca.
Este año nos mandaron el año pasado tuve una, pero no estoy. Pero hizo la camiseta, no nada. A otros dieron cajita con la.
Sí, viene una camisa, la
¿Cómo se llama?
bufanda, 2 pases para el museo.
You wanna just,
Anywhere?
yeah, please, that's open there on the side there.
Un póster. Pero, a decir la verdad,
Adrian will just be zooming.
no me gustó mucho. Me gustó más, parece de verdad.
A mí me gusta.
No es que está fea, simplemente no es...
Oh, right.
como la
It'll
laptop.
be just my little
Can you
laptop.
see us okay?
I have it turned on.
Sí, ese creo que es
You want me
mejor.
to?
Yeah.
El diseño.
Start then.
Yeah, I would, I'll see.
You guys will post this somewhere or copy it.
Audio, probably.
Yeah, we can, I should, yeah.
Oh, his side?
Yeah, record
You
it.
can record it, yeah, you can record his side.
I mean, it's better than us shooting the screen.
Sure.
Jada, that's open, or the one next to Jeremiah, that's
Oh,
whatever.
this
He's
is
gonna be here, that's open if you want. Yep.
Yeah, definitely not using both.
I know it's not.
I'm sure you're used to it now, but that picture of you and Peter at the,
I honestly, before that, I was wearing like heels and like boots, like a tight heel. I was like, I should have just put them up on stage.
so you're used to seeing that, the risers working the opposite way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm usually in the back row. That cracked me up.
This is kind of awkward, just staring at each other, Jeremiah.
Or am I the person that you're both looking at? I guess it is. I was gonna ask how you're feeling.
You know, I feel okay. I feel okay.
Is it COVID?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. So, yeah, you're happy I'm not there. I tested positive like almost 2 weeks ago. Basically was through it, and then played tennis last Sunday, and then started feeling bad again, and then started testing positive again, and so I got the rebound.
So then, does that mean you missed the trip then, to Morocco? Yes.
Yeah, so Jada, my girlfriend and I were about 15 minutes from jumping in the car to go to the airport, and she had some
if you can hear me, I think we've got everyone, we might have one or two late arrivals, which is fine. Just a couple of reminders for the group and today's format. I know it looks like we have a window there for recording permission. Matt's on that.
Oh, Matt's taking care of it.
Okay, I don't know, just make sure to message him. Adrian Hanauer is gonna give us his opening remarks, and then we'll throw over to Hugh Weber for his opening remarks. After that, I'm not calling on anyone today. It's super informal by design, so I want you guys just to have an organic conversation. Just ask away as needed to whomever you'd like to ask your question of. We're working on recording playback for Adrian's portion of this. We'll have audio recorded in the room for Hugh's portion of it. And obviously, anybody that needs anything after in the way of sidebars or additional content, please just let us know. Adrian, at this time, if you can hear me, I'm gonna throw it to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Hey, can you do a quick, I see half the room.
Yeah.
Is there more to this?
There is. There's lots of folks
Okay.
here.
Oh, wow, okay. Bye, everybody. Okay.
Is it okay to put it back where it was so you can see Hugh?
Yeah, I know it's fine. I just feel awkward.
Just talk to me, Adrian, it's fine.
There we go, perfect.
What's that?
Just talk to me.
Okay, all right. Well, again, I feel like the other half of the room overheard the conversation, so yes, I have COVID, the tail end of COVID rebound. I'm really sorry not to be there, but you are not, obviously, really sorry that I'm not there. I'm super excited to welcome Hugh officially to the Sounders family today. And I'm really excited for you all to get to know him. And so, I just wanted to start there, but I also wanted to acknowledge Peter Tomazawa and the great 4 years that he contributed to Sounders FC, and really, really thrilled for the opportunity with the organizing committee for Seattle 2026. I think it's a fantastic role, and he'll be successful. And this is building soccer in our region is a collaborative effort, and I think the World Cup will be symbiotic to the Sounders' growth and vice versa.
Give him the timeout.
No, hold on.
Oh,
Got him. No, you're back now. Sorry, it was my fault, Adrian. I was trying to boost the audio and lost you.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
And then I can also press that.
Okay. Sorry, Adrian.
do you need me to? Do you
Yeah,
need
go
me
back.
to regurgitate
Got
it?
10 seconds.
2 minutes.
I think I was welcoming or excited about Peter, and the growth of the sport is going to be symbiotic. The World Cup, the Sounders, rain, all the pieces to soccer fit together and help each other. And so we're very excited about Peter's role with the World Cup. Still got me?
Yes.
All right. Look, we are certainly going to spend some time. Hugh's going to be able to answer a lot of questions. Excited to get him talking. But we also obviously announced kind of a 6-year plan. This club has always been super ambitious, and today, in my mind, just sort of reinforces that ambition. And our announcement today really centers around the belief in the future of our sport, our league, our community. We've always been a values-based organization. Our values as an organization drive our enterprise, need to drive our enterprise, and our enterprise needs to drive our values and what that allows us to do, the impact that allows us to have in our community. A healthy enterprise also allows us to continue to compete for trophies every year, which is something that I'm really proud of. you know, in terms of the legacy that this club has always had and will continue. We're a fan-centric club. We listen to our fans, individual fans, one by one. We learn from them, we discuss with them, we empathize, we celebrate together, we embrace democracy in sport. And all of this makes our club better. And so we intend to continue that, Hugh has been charged with growing that fan base, the breadth and depth of that fan base. And we have some internal metrics that we're working towards, and perhaps over time we'll talk about those internal metrics. But suffice it to say, Hugh's goal is to bring more people into the Sounder family. All of this can't be done without great people, and I'm really proud of the people that we get to work with every day. Our staff is amazing, and Hugh's role will be to continue to get the best out of the group, get more out of the group, and to continue to grow leaders and innovators in the sport overall, not just in Seattle, but in the Northwest, in North America, and globally. In terms of the 6 years, there's a very clear long list of big, audacious challenges that lie in front of us. Our new Apple partnership, maybe leading off, but we have the Leagues Cup tournament that has an opportunity to be a very big part of our fan experience and team side moving forward. Our 50th anniversary and all that entails, including a reimagining of some of our marks and imagery. The training facility, and certainly you're all there. There are plenty of renderings, and we've talked a lot about the Sounders fields and the Sounders team portion and the business office. But it's 150 acres of effectively blank canvas, and only our imaginations and our abilities to execute will limit what we are potentially able to do on that campus. We have a really, really willing partner in Unico who is super anxious to create something really, really special on that campus. And so, without going into too much detail, there are lots of things that could grow beyond just a soccer training facility for the Sounders. There are other things that are rumored, and some are traditional in what soccer teams do around the world. But whether it's partnerships with other clubs, whether it's investments in sports technology, whether it is innovative new ways to engage with fans, whether it's youth sports, there are lots of different opportunities that lie in front of us, and we have a fantastic ownership group who cares deeply about the Sounders and our community, and are super supportive of our efforts to continue to grow the footprint of the club. And so, Hugh will have to sort through those opportunities And I can't tell you exactly what those are today, but over time, we intend to be opportunistic in ways that we can use the wind at our backs to grow the sport and the Sounders footprint. I guess the most important, the most interesting part of this for me is I get to work with Hugh again, or not again. I get to work with Hugh. Hugh and I have known each other since we were 19 years old. I've been calling him for his advice and counsel in sports for 22 years, or however long I've been involved with the Sounders now, 21, 22 years. I am 100% certain he's the right person to lead this organization at this time. And most of you know that I take my role as majority owner of the Sounders very seriously and very personally. This is my community. These are my people that I believe that I am a Sounders fan. I'm Sounders through and through. This club's been part of my DNA since I was 8 years old. And I wouldn't hand the reins of this club to someone that I didn't trust in the way I trust Hugh. So, Hugh's been on the ground working for a bit. I've gotten to see his touch with our team, with our fans, with our partners, and it's absolutely confirmed my excitement and belief in the fact that Hugh will be an amazing, thoughtful, passionate steward for our club, our sport, our community. So with that, I was going to hand it over to my good buddy Hugh Weber, and I'm sure Hugh has some opening thoughts as well.
Thanks, Adrian. I have to admit, I woke up with a pinch me moment today. For a kid that grew up in South Tacoma, to be able to be sitting here and talking with you all about leading one of the preeminent franchises in Seattle and doing so with a bright future, again, it's pretty amazing. Before we take your questions, I do want to give a little bit of background or context as to, after 15 years of Adrian asked me to come work here, why I finally said yes. And it starts with the fact that this is a values-driven organization. I don't think I would have considered this. I know hometown and all that stuff is a great storyline, but having worked in sports for as long as I have seen the Sounders as kind of the gold standard in terms of what teams do when they lead with their values for the betterment of the community. And that is why I got into sports. I wasn't that kid who was, wasn't good enough to play, who wanted to get in the front office. I didn't even think of it, candidly, my background, that I one day would look back and be able to say I was part of teams that have done what they've done. To me, it was about the impact of sports, specifically athletes and teams, and how they can transform people's lives and impact communities, for sure. And again, I think the Sounders are leaders in this space, and I've been impressed in my short time on the ground here. The evidence of this is so strong, and we've seen it over the last few weeks, but the Sounders fans, the community, see the Sounders as kind of this beacon of leadership and how we're driving values and for the betterment of this community. And so being a part of that is a huge part of my decision. Secondly, I'm a builder. I like to grow and build things. I like I like the idea that whether it's the organization growing, or if it's us individually growing, or if it's all employees, I just have spent a lot of time inspired and energized around how we're growing as an organization, and the places that I have been places I've chosen to go because they've had that opportunity. And as Adrian has eloquently laid out, I see huge opportunity here from a league level with all that's happening in terms of expansion, with potential franchises down the road, with the new Apple deal and the globalization, with the players obviously continue to evolve and grow, and we've seen their presence on World Cup teams recently. So I think MLS is positioned to do amazing things. I think the sport itself, with the World Cup coming in 2026, as Adrian said, it's a huge launch pad for us to continue to grow this sport in North America. And then finally, you know, the Sounders have been incredibly successful. I mean, you can't argue that they're probably one of the best launched franchises in the last 25 years, for sure. But the question is, what can we do more? How possibly can we grow to be not just a great regional, not just a great MLS, but a great global brand that is taking that platform and then taking that energy back to do the value-based things that we want to do in this community. And we think that if we can grow through different avenues, not just, again, fan bases, it can be a huge part of that, and how we engage with our fans will be a big part of that. But there might be, as Adrian said, other technologies, other teams, other opportunities, right? We've seen it in this space a lot in the last 5 to 6 years. It's candidly what I did in my last role. And again, I feel like the ability to take some of my experiences and come home and do this was kind of once in a life opportunity. And finally, I'd say, again, this is a personal decision for me. My 89-year-old mother was pretty happy when I told her she'd be seeing more of her son. And so it's been a long time, it's been a long journey. Super proud and humbled to be part of the Sounders family, and look forward to working with you all and bringing all these plans to life. So with that, I think we're good for questions.
We'll open for your questions. Just a reminder, guys, with Adrian on Zoom, if you can speak up so we can hear you, it's super appreciated, especially for questions being directed his way at this time. The floor is all yours, media members.
Hugh, your experience with the NBA, the NHL, a building, Prudential Center,
Right.
even soccer, how will that help you in this arena? I mean, there's the growth of the NBA and
Right.
you know, just the breadth of all that experience. How does it manifest itself here?
So every league is different.
Yeah.
Right. Every fan base is different. Every market is different. But I would say there's a few things that are commonalities, and that how teams create the practice of engaging with their fans. You know, not just, you know, listening to them, but actually making sure that their relationship is unique and personal, I think is a commonality wherever I've worked. And so operationally, internally, we'll do a lot of building of structure of how we bring that to life. So making sure our season ticket holders are people that feel like their investment is a good one in these tickets, and we know that they are. They're taking money out of their family budgets to come to matches, and they're doing so because they're creating lifetime memories, and they're having these magic moments, and they're part of a larger global community, and they're doing so with a team that believes in the same values that they believe. All of that stuff is things we have to do. We have to do it with our partners. You know, we have to. The corporate base here in Seattle is amazing, but we have to align with them in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and then also look at, again, international or national sponsors that might be able to help us be part of this. So I would say that those are all the building blocks of what it is to run a franchise in any market, right? And what I think the nuance is how you do it in a way that is unique to Seattle, right? And unique to Sounders fans, and that's what I'll be learning over the next, you know, I'm a learner, so I'll be here learning. That's what I've been doing for the last few weeks. And again, as long as there's an open engagement with our constituents, I think we'll be in good shape.
With that in mind, you know, soccer is a very specific sport. It's, you know, a very proud sport. I just kind of wanted to get your take on, you know, what your experiences or your attachment to the game has been throughout your life.
So I grew up here, so I was a Sounders fan. Like, I was here when only the Sonics and Sounders were here, you know, so I remember what it was when you felt like we were an outlier in terms of professional sports. But probably more recently, you know, my experience with the English Premier League and Crystal Palace, like, you're right, it's not a sport, it's a religion, it's a picket. It's like, I try to explain it to people, but it's like having your college team and your church and your sporting team all be rolled into one. And so I get it, you know, and I think that there is definitely a different mindset in terms of how we think about the sport. But I would say it's every sport has its own unique quality. I think hockey has a very similar quality in terms of the tradition and the connection that the fans have with the sport specifically, and generally with each team. So yeah, I'm very mindful of the fact that this will be a unique experience for me, as it will be for, you know, obviously where our team grows and how we get there.
Hugh, just to that point, each club, each organization, each professional entity has a sense of tradition of the sports in the club. How will you balance that with affordability and access?
Yeah, of course. Well, you have to have your fans to be able to engage with the team at every level. So what I mean by that is that it's not just driving dollars. As Adrian said eloquently, you know, we are an enterprise driven by our values, and our values have to drive our enterprise. So we will always have an inclusive space for everybody, no matter their socioeconomic status or otherwise. How does that show up? We have always comped tickets to the community. We've always engaged through our programs through the Ray Foundation and others to actually grow the sport, inconsequential of how much money you have in your pocket, right? So I think that is how we will continue to progress, and we'll figure out how, when we talk about how we find corporate partners, how we might look for ways that we work with those types of individuals or corporations to help us expand the affordability of the game.
Jada, Lisa, this young times, nice to meet you. Can you guys talk a little bit more about the background? 19, so, or you were 19, I don't know how old you were. But,
don't go there. I was 19 as well.
You were, okay.
I was gonna put you on the spot and say
No,
yes.
Jada, we can't discuss that.
but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, just a little bit, or what the clean version, I don't know.
No, there's a very clean version.
Okay.
We were both on the up and up. I had a roommate in college that was a high school and teammate of Adrian's. Adrian and I met again at 19. I can honestly tell you, I don't think I had my first beer until I was 20 something. So I can tell you it was clean for sure. But generally, I'd say we respected and knew each other. I liked Adrian a lot as a human being. We stayed in touch, and it wasn't until later. I did not start my career in sports, and it wasn't until later that we really grew even closer because of his focus and connection to soccer and my experiences in different markets with different league and teams. So it's a relationship that's grown over time, both fondness that goes both ways, not just because of what Adrian does, but because of who he is. I respect him for how he lives his life and his values and his humbleness. In fact, I coach him a little bit that he's probably a little bit too humble, but in fact, it's a friendship I would say is based on way more than our professional backgrounds. Would you add anything to that, Adrian?
No, I just, you know, I think I would add, I know some people shy away from working with friends. I embrace it. I mean, obviously, the quality of the work product has to be there as well, but I trust Hugh with my life. And honestly, you know, I was asked this the other day. The timing was kind of fortuitous with the World Cup coming on and the opportunity for Peter and Hugh's timing. But I don't know if I'm a person who could go run a process and like interview 10 people I don't know for this role. Like that was not, this was basically a one of one situation for me. Knowing Hugh the way I do and trusting him the way I trust him, and knowing the quality of his work that he's done in his previous 20 years, and knowing how he cares about people and community. So,
Okay, if I can follow up with that, all of your resume is incredible, but with you also saying that, how did that balance as far as diversity and inclusion? You know, how did you, Adrian, fit that into it? Also, I know that you're close with Craig too, so how did that kind of come into play with that, with wanting to have someone you know, but?
yeah, no, it's a super fair question, Jada, and you know, look, one of the things that Hugh and I talked about probably starting 10 years ago was his track record in developing executives, racially, ethnically, sexual orientation, diverse executives. And so, again, it is super fair. Hugh is a white man. I sit here and see that, but for sure DEI was part of the conversation in bringing you on board.
Follow up to that. You're gonna hire who looks like you. We see that everywhere, right? And that's fine. But moving forward, have you all? It sounds like there's been some discussion about maybe now looking at that as you come on moving forward, because the past is the past.
Yeah.
But moving forward.
So let me build off of what Adrian
Please.
said and maybe answer your question from my perspective, which I hope answers your question. You know, I think that it's proven to me that diverse teams of human beings perform better, period, right? And that's not we took a survey and we put X number of people in this box and X number of people in that box. When you literally sit around a table and you're pulling diverse thoughts from different people's backgrounds and different experiences, and you're not just like trying to fill a quota system, right? Then you have real diversity, and that starts with culture, right? And everywhere I would say I've been, I have made it a priority that developing and sponsoring, not just mentoring, sponsoring individuals who don't look like me, who are the future leaders of the sports industry. I'm super happy with the progress I've made. We're not there, right? And I see right now myself as a steward of developing the next leader who's going to sit in this chair, right? And that's my job. I told Adrian day one, like, I am here to develop that next person that's going to take this job, who will be hopefully not looking like me, right? And so it starts with, how can we attract, recruit people to the Sounders organization who want to grow? That's why you're hearing me talk about growth. This is about people who want to be part of challenging themselves to get a little better every day and to come into this very special team, but to have the opportunity to lead at some point. And so that's my way of leading. It's my way of coaching. It's how I've managed my every team I've worked with. And I think that I would ask you to sit here in a couple of years and ask me the question again, right? And because that's where the proof is, right? Is when we can actually show real leadership and real diversity in our conversations around the table.
Here, Felipe from NRA 1360 AM. Soccer is a very diverse, multicultural sport that is played across in the whole world. So, being that you came from the NHL or NBA, where the sport is more locally here in the United States, soccer is more diverse. It's more, let's say, it's played, it's practiced. Everybody practices soccer in the whole world. Represents a challenge to you that you're gonna come and work for a team or in a league that has a lot of diversity? You were talking about fan engagement that is the same across the whole sports. Does that represent to you a challenge, or have you thought about that?
I actually think it's an opportunity, Felipe. I think that, first off, I want to tell you that I actually think the NBA is a more global league than you're giving it credit for.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that the majority of players in the NHL don't come from the United States, they come from other parts of the world. So every league has its own, I would never compare those two leagues to the scope of soccer, not a chance. But I do think the fact that the Sounders are part of a league that is now competing on a global level, as we saw a couple weeks ago in Morocco, actually creates the opportunity. We have the Apple deal coming up where literally our games will be available to people globally. And so I don't see that as a hindrance. Like, I'm not gonna take this view that, oh my gosh, we've got, hockey and basketball has this like preconceived map of what it's gonna do. I think the entire world is open up to the Sounders brand. I think it's upon us as an organization to figure out how we leverage that to grow the fan base.
Along those lines, how do you leverage the opportunity of hosting a World Cup, and what does the Sounders' involvement with that entire experience look like?
Well, of course, we've seen it previously when World Cups came here. We saw a step function. In fact, MLS was born out of the last time we hosted. And I think we could all agree that the sport is more ingrained now than it's been in our history. So I think, again, it's a springboard. It's not just, it's another step function of change where the world will be looking at the United States and how we are, embracing the sport. But also, that these big events draw in sports fans that are not necessarily soccer fans. And that's where the growth of our sport is gonna come. It's gonna come from people who already identify with, they love competition, and maybe they don't necessarily understand or appreciate the beauty of our game, or they don't understand or appreciate the athleticism of our athletes, or whatever. And I think the World Cup, when everybody stops, it's a moment in time where everyone focuses on our sports, and then it'll be our job after the World Cup leaves in 26 to make sure that the Sounders are carrying that torch in this market and hopefully in North America of the growth of the game, and hopefully leading from the front, obviously from the front, in terms of how we're converting, again, real love of the sport domestically.
Along those same lines, despite the growth of MLS and soccer being the most global sport, if you ask a teenager today here in the region about soccer, he's probably talking about the Premier League, he's talking about La Liga. How would you bridge that gap to make sure that the new generation is talking about MLS, speaking of the Seattle Sounders?
Right, the point of entry for fandom comes from all different places. Sometimes it comes from playing, sometimes it comes from video games. We've seen this phenomenon happen in the last 8 years or so, where kids are actually big fans of sport because of Xbox or whatever else. So I think it's important that we understand that we're going to have to find multiple paths for people to understand the MLS and specifically the Sounders brand and what it means. So there's not one little cookie cutter answer I can give you as in terms of how we're going to turn that kid who likes an EPL team into but I think over time, I think that this is going to be any excuse that you would have to say I'm better than that or whatever, I think is going to go away. So,
Speaking of your time at Crystal, or your last stop,
Yeah.
you had some role overseeing Crystal Palace, correct? And
no, Steve Parrish actually saw Crystal Palace, but
Okay, so I
he
was
was part
curious,
of he's
like-
part of the family.
Right,
of
so
the fans.
I guess I was curious, what if there was any direct involvement with Crystal Palace, and then kind of related to that, if you could kind of speak to the timeline of leaving HBSE and taking this job.
Okay, let me start with Josh Harris, David Blitzer, just briefly. In 2013, they shared a vision with me, much like Adrian has here, with about building this incredibly world-class sport operation where they would buy separate teams and do different things. How we treated each team was a little bit different when we bought them and folded in. Steve Harris was doing an amazing job with Crystal Palace. He had brought them up to the EPL. And so my role there was really more helping Josh and David in terms of how they were engaging and interacting. Whereas with the 76ers and Devils, it was very hands-on. So I don't pretend to know, but I know the issues. Right? I know the issues that Steve was dealing with. Steve is a good friend. Been to many matches, but again, I know it's a different animal. It's a different beast. So I I'm not sure if I answered your question, but.
What, I mean, it sounds like you did. It sounds like
Okay.
you weren't directly involved in
Not the
overseeing them
day-to-day.
the same way that you were the
Right.
76ers and the Devils.
Right, Steve was a hands-on operator, so it's all good, and a good one at that.
And then the other part of the question was the transition from your position, from your job
Oh.
with HSB.
HBSC.
HBSE.
It's all right, sounds like a financial institute, it's fine.
to this one, and if that was if they were
So-
related, or if they were kind of like
No, so what
independent events.
happened was, I'll be honest, what happened was, my contract was coming up, and I went to Josh and David about, I don't know, let's call it 6 months earlier, and I just said, I think everything has a beginning and a middle and an end. I think I'm at the end. Like, I think alluding to what I said earlier about, I love to build things, and we had kind of built things, this enormous organization, multiple teams, multiple brands, multiple buildings. It was great, but I was looking for that next challenge. Like, I wanted to go do something else, and there was a lot of conversation about what that could look like, because if you don't know, they own teams outside of HBSC. And I just felt it was time to press refresh. And I candidly didn't do it with this job in mind. In fact, Adrian contacted me right away, and we were talking about it, and I said, I don't know, man. I just don't know if now's the right time, if this is, and the more we talked about his vision, and the more I, understood the value that he was bringing in terms of understanding what he wanted to do, I asked myself, why am I being resistant to this? Why? Because I would tell you, being away from Seattle for 30 years, I always had in my mind that the next thing was going to go to Europe or go to who knows, right? And so I really did not have a design or plan. In fact, I'm probably as surprised as anybody that I'm sitting here today.
Hugh, speaking of that, all the things behind you, I mean, it's a bit, to me and maybe to us, it seems like a big chew. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening here. So the challenge of doing all that was part of what drew you here. I mean, look at the World Cup, the 50th anniversary, the long
100%.
years.
In fact, if this stuff wasn't behind me, I probably wouldn't be here,
Okay.
right? So, in addition, as I said, in addition to the values that this team stands for, that was kind of a non-negotiable. If the team wasn't who it was, I wouldn't be sitting here. But if it were not for, the stuff that we're gonna chew, to your point, I love big, complicated puzzles. And right now, this feels like a lot, but you know what? Building high-performance teams who tackle big, crazy ideas is what I love, and that's what I hope we can do here.
Thank you. Danny Jackson, I've been a member with actually Pete Fugue, who sat there,
Okay.
part of the broadcast team of the radio for a number of years now. You mentioned Apple and the relationship that Apple's going to bring to the league and to this franchise. If the broadcasting component is the tip of the iceberg, what sits below it? What excites you about value that Apple can bring with the partnership?
Well, Apple has proven themselves to be a pretty successful company, and they have put their full weight behind this partnership. This isn't like a, dip your toe in the water and let's see what happens. They have a lot to lose if this isn't wildly successful, right? And I've never seen Apple actually, do something that half-baked, right? And so I think that their commitment to this and their belief, which is as strong as ours, that this has real reach and scale, and to be able to do not just outside the 1,000 matches we'll show in terms of MLS and MLS Next and what have you, but in terms of the content and the content that'll go around it, and how that our brands will be more accessible to more people on a broader basis. I think that is what gives me the excitement, and knowing that they are behind it and with all of their weight, for sure.
Along with that, you've mentioned global brand. Garth Lagerwey also mentioned kind of growing this brand more global, and it goes along with Nico's question as well. How exactly are there untapped avenues or uncharted territory, things that you can get into to help do that? I mean, specifically, ideas right now.
Right, so tactically, there's a lot of small things you can do in terms of how you, again, talk about, where you show up. For example, if we're talking about conversations about the best MLS teams, okay, we're in that conversation. But if you're talking about who are the best run sports organizations in any league in North America, I don't know we've ever had aspirations to think of ourselves that way, right? If you think about who are the best at developing players in the world, I don't know if we've ever had aspirations to think about that, And And so part of this starts with, what is the vision? Can we actually put a pin out there that says, we're gonna go reach here, and we're gonna build a talented group of people around it to go do it, but it's a moonshot, and let's go, right? That's a little bit different than saying, and then all the tactics follow. That's why you build high-performing, smart teams. I can't give you all the tactics of how we're gonna get there, but it starts with, again, saying that's what we're gonna go achieve. We're gonna go do it. And then you build the plans around it. But it's small incremental steps. There's not one big magic thing that, otherwise everyone would do it, right?
Does that,
Sorry.
so what I'm hearing you say, you're more of a direction along with Adrian, and then let the process take itself.
So you build the process step by, but people sometimes misunderstand about sports teams. They think it's this big glamorous thing that, you sit back and it must be pretty, fun to do and all. It's kind of like running a cafeteria. Like every small thing has to work right. The food has to be hot. You have to get people that smile, and yet all of that has to work together. And so my point is that you build the process, you build the people that can actually solve the questions and problems that we need to solve to actually achieve all the things that Adrian's laying out. And then you let it happen. It has to happen over time. So there's no magic here that I can tell you, like, these are the 4 things we're gonna do out of the gate. You will see changes in how we engage with our fans starting in 23, 100%. How we are engaging our season ticket members, how we're rolling out our partnerships, how we're thinking about things. You will see those things immediately. And you just have to trust me that they grow over time to be global in nature. Sorry.
Yeah, the follow-up is, excuse the naivete, but how did Adrian, Hugh, Craig, and Brian how does all work together?
How does it all work together?
Yeah, and because I'm more of watching the team, the business. I'm just
Yeah.
If you could help me on.
In any sport, the business and the let's call it the technical side of it, they are symbiotic. They have to work together. I would say that we take a mentality, starting with Adrian, that we are one team. We're not a soccer team business, a soccer team technical. We're one team. And everything we do culturally around, if you work for the Sounders, we try to have it be to have that experience to be similar, whether you're, in training, in the room, or if you're in the boardroom. It doesn't matter. We want that experience to be very similar. So Craig and I and Brian and Adrian, we talk continually about how we're, again, building culture that's consistent, so that when someone says they work for the Sounders, we don't want them to say, well, I work for the Sounders finance department, or I work for the Sounders, you work for the Sounders family. That's just it. So there's a lot of communication between us as leaders, but there's also communication, again, we pull people in, and every time we gather the team together, it's with both the technical side and the office.
Thank you.
Well, sorry.
It was mentioned by Peter that some things had to be shelved as far as plans to grow after 2019 because of COVID and the shutdown. So as far as the 6-year plan, how much of that is kind of going back to what you really wanted to do before COVID, or how much of it is new innovative ideas that?
I wasn't here in 19, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you answer this, Adrian.
Yeah, and I wanna, before I get there, Gina, I wanna go back to, something Hugh glanced over, but again, I'll take the opportunity to reinforce it. These teams are, and more so now than ever, are big, complicated, interrelated, super nuanced organizations. And again, I do think sometimes people think, oh, you just, you turn the ticket sales thing on, and all of a sudden, people just start flocking in, doing that, and you, oh yeah, of course, the big effing deal advertising thing, that's easy. You just kind of, go into the back of the shop, and something like that comes out the other end, and you know, the Rave Foundation, well, of course, you build fields, you just throw a few dollars, like, all of this is super complicated, and, you know, Hugh, I think was talking about building the machine, like you know, I call it the muscle sometimes. To take what we have today, and again, I'll just throw it out there, double it, requires amazing leadership, amazing people, amazing systems and execution all synced together perfectly. And again, I've seen what Hugh has done with other organizations, and I am super excited and confident that we will get there. And you know, it'll take some time. Sorry, Jada.
Repeat it?
You would have.
The idea is.
Oh, 2019 recycle. You know, some of it. Yeah, sure. Some of it is continuation, because we were pretty far along in the exploration on a new training facility, and then COVID hit, and you know, it sort of went back burner for a while. Some of these other items, you know, around technology or team partnerships, things like that, for sure there were conversations, and some of that is starting to percolate again. But there are new things on the horizon as well. Certainly, some of which is now possible because of the World Cup, which we didn't know about in 2019, and 140 acres of training facility or blank canvas that we didn't have.
Regarding the strategic plan, does 6 years have any significance? You know, is it aligned with a timetable? And was there collaboration in that plan with you, Hugh, as you came into the?
I'd say the six years is a little prescriptive in the sense that I've lived through it. I've lived through a 6-year window previously. I've lived through the stabilization of a team before that, and it was just my experience to know that there are going to be a good deal of benchmarks that we'll be able to see in 6 years. And again, it could be 5, it could be 7. Like, you know, I'm not getting crazy with 6, but I think there was some thought put into how long it takes to get certain things done, and also earmarking around 2026. So it's some years beyond that, and I think that's the mindfulness of that.
I'm Nico Moreno, Pulso Sports. I didn't quite introduce myself. I kind of wanted your take and Adrian's take as well on this. The Hispanic community is highly motivated by soccer, and despite the Sounders having one of the best attendances in the MLS, the demographic of Hispanics is still quite low compared to other teams. Part of that 6 years, is there any emphasis on what you mentioned, engagement and resources towards that community to get that Hispanic community more into the games?
100%. I'd love to sit down with you and get your insights, honestly. I'd say it's a huge opportunity, and we just have to understand how to engage, as I said earlier, on the terms of that segment, for sure.
You know, one of the,
Oh, well, I was gonna say, when you said that you lived through a 6-year, can you go through that? Like, what team was that? And
So when 2013, you know, we bought the New Jersey Devils, had the 76ers since 2011, and then I saw how long it took for us to build an operating system at HBSE, and then for us to go out and purchase and acquire teams and fold them in, and what that looked like and how long it took. It wasn't really until about 2019 that it was like a full running machine, and it was like, and everyone could see it was a force. And so there is a timeline when, listen, there's a timeline with someone like myself stepping in to a role like this. You don't just, turn on a dime. It takes a while for culture and ideas and systems to kind of take foot. And so I think all of those things are in consideration as we continue to grow.
Adrian has sort of, by the way, I'm Jeremiah Sham from Sunbird Heart, and Adrian sort of alluded to some infrastructure kind of ideas, and I know this has sort of been out there, and just I know you said you weren't gonna get into like some of the specifics, but is there ideas of the Sounders having their own stadium, and is this, or is Lumen Field still sort of like the way forward for?
Well, as you know, it takes a long time to build a stadium.
Yeah.
So I'll let Adrian handle, again, or lean in on this, but I would say, generally, we want to always be focused on what's best for Sounders fans. That's our obligation. But again, there's a lot of work to be done just with that simple idea. And Adrian, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jeremiah, you and I, I've probably given you this quote every 2 years for the last 12 years.
It's always good to get on the record, though.
What's that?
It's always good to get it on the record again, though.
Okay. Well, no, I was gonna say my normal, like every sports team on the planet dreams of their own perfect, amazing cathedral to their sport. We're certainly no different. Lumen's been amazing for us. It is amazing for us. We have 10 more years on our lease there. But you know, I'll sort of, that statement will live forever. You know, if and until when we had our own stadium. So, is that?
Yeah, that totally answers my answer. No, it totally does, and the only reason I bring it up is, you talk about all this space here at Long Acres, and it just kind of always leads to this, is this part of the plan kind of question, and some clarity there is always, you know, if there's anything new to report, it's always good to report.
When do you break ground?
You'll be the first to know, Jeremiah.
Sure.
When do you break ground on Long Acres, as far as building the fields?
Soon.
Tom just wanted
You know,
to.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody in the room actually knows, but like
Tom
in the
knows.
next-
Yeah.
Oh,
So you'll start seeing in March, the construction zone being set up, and probably right around the first week of April, dirt starting to move. But we're still because we follow the law, we're still getting permits for things, and we can't do some things until the city.
I'm not sure if that was audible to everyone, but I think a mid-March kind of launch and then a April 1st real activity.
Adrian mentioned the blank canvas that Long Acres is. Are you contributing ideas to like what's gonna take place here? Are those ideas more set in stone by people who have been here longer?
No, we're definitely looking at this as a blank canvas. I think that there is not many opportunities this close to the proximity of infrastructure, highways, rail lines that is the sounder that it butts up against the project, being proximity to downtown Seattle, and being an incredible community like Renton, like the possibilities are endless, right? But it kind of begs the point that we've been saying is like you can have great ideas, but you have to have a team that can operate against them, right? And so right now we're formulating what are the most highest rich priority targets that we should be focused on. And right now it's about getting the team here, right? We got to get our team launched here. We got to get our business organization settled here. But again, there will be designs that we'll share over time that'll actually support the idea that this is an unbelievable project for the city of Renton and for the South Sound generally. Anything you would add to that, Adrian?
no, I think that's right. Yep.
Hey, Adrian, just to follow.
Other than you know, we do, you know, the theme of this sort of campus live work play. So you know, there are going to be a bunch of people live here, a bunch of people that work here, and there. Sorry, I'm not there. And then the play, you know, the play part sort of is where your imagination gets to be let loose.
Adrian, following up on your comment on the 10-year partnership, is that with the Seahawks or King County?
Say that again.
On the 10-year partnership, who you said
The lease.
the 10-year lease,
that's
that's with the county?
It's a lease with the, First
First
and
and
Goal,
Goal,
which is the operator of the stadium. It's a sublease.
Okay, okay.
Adrian, with Providence, and actually I wanted to get your opinion too, it's my understanding that you've been in communication with fans about assuring, I guess, or recommitting to your values. Wanted to know what that is right now, like what does that look like in terms of, you know, reassuring fans that you're sticking to your values regardless of what Providence may or may not stand for, and Hugh, how might have you handled it differently
Right.
or expected blowback differently?
So I would say it's really unfair for me to say I would have done something different, because it's hindsight is always 20/20, and it's not fair to the people who were making decisions, or even to me to try to speculate. But I will say the job is 100% mine to activate that partnership in a way that brings integrity to the values that we're talking about. It's 100%, you know, with my leadership in the organization, job is to execute against what we say is an additive bonus in terms of how we're showing up in the communities. Because until we do that, it's just words, right? I will say I have been privileged to sit on some of our supporter groups calls, engage with some fans, and you know, again, I was moved by the personal stories of the people who were hurt by this, right? Who felt that the brand and the team alienated them, and in fact, their personal stories were gut-wrenching, and it's hard. But I will say it added to the motivation of our team to make sure that, in fact, the value of this partnership, it will be judged over time. Like we need to go get active and do the things that we believe. In fact, maybe even lean into some of the communities that felt most hurt at this time, because as Adrian has been saying, like the Sounders' values have not changed, right? So we have to just, again, build credibility and legitimacy around that with what we do. Is there anything you would add to that?
I guess the other things I would add, I mean, our fans are amazing. I'll maybe reiterate, sitting with fans and hearing personal stories, the vulnerability people were willing to share with us about how they were feeling was, it was sad, it was humbling. Again, to Hugh's point, it was a great learning experience. And back to Hugh's point, the Sounders, our values have not changed one iota. We want as many fans in the Sounders tent as possible. And we understand that there are some fans who maybe have a foot out of the tent right now. They're in a wait and see posture. It's our job to prove that we are who we said we were 2 months ago. And to Hugh's point, again, that can't come in a week, and it can't come in a month, and it can't come with a bunch of words or tweets or sound bites. We have to show up and prove it, and we will. And again, I'll go back to when I was talking about how complicated these organizations are. This is one of those pieces to the puzzle that makes running a sports franchise so complicated. These are community assets, and when you're a community asset, there are a bunch of real, positives and easy things that come with that, and there are a bunch of challenges and responsibilities that come with that. And for me, having a thoughtful human being like Hugh helping lead us through these complicated issues just makes me feel really good. And Hugh and a bunch of other people in our organization, our entire but you know, Hugh being able to and having seen a lot in his career. Yeah, that's what I would add.
If you can, I don't know if this is too personal to ask, but if you could kind of go back to the beginning. I mean, Providence has always been associated with the Catholic Church, so it just seems like it was never going to be, to your fan base, a good idea from the beginning. So what was the thought process, I guess, at the beginning of that to go with a company like that?
Well, I mean, without going into too much detail, our previous partner was associated with the Catholic Church. Every sports team in the Northwest is associated with the Catholic Church, as a medical partner associated with the Catholic Church. So we, you know, we went to the market with our asset and started having conversations. And I'll go back to ultimately where we landed, which was, you know, ultimately we kind of looked at 4 criteria in this partnership. One, Providence Swedish was going to take extraordinary care of our athletes, both physically and mentally. 2, we wanted to do business with people, leaders, who we believe in and think are good people in the community. And we think the leaders of Providence Swedish are really good people, and the people that work in their organization are good people. 3, we believe that the overall value that we can bring to our community together far overrides the you know, the negative. We think that ultimately we will be able to deliver amazing good in our community. Certainly starting with our efforts in Renton around mental health. And 4, Jada, I mean, there is certainly an economic reality to partnerships. Again, we do run a business, and we have to balance all of the different pieces to make sure that we can continue to try to challenge for championships while also delivering to the best of our abilities in our community. I don't know if that answers the question for you.
No, it does. How are sales going with the jerseys? Do you know yet?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, you or Alex might.
Yeah, the jersey was launched yesterday, as you know. Historically, unbelievable, you know, reaction. You know, even outpacing the most successful launch we've had to date, which is the Hendricks jersey. I think it's an incredible reflection of how important Bruce Lee is to this community, but also how our fans, you know, are engaged with this team and love, again, the initiatives we do that are focused on the community. And there's a story behind the kit that goes way more than just a brand. And I think that resonates with people in this fan base. And so the sales have been spectacular. And again, we're hopeful that they'll be a seminal part of the 23 season for sure.
When you have 2 global iconic kids, and speaking of who you're commemorating,
Right.
you know, how challenging is it to have a follow-up? I mean, there are very little people with that type of influence.
He says to keep raising the bar. I don't know what to tell you. We'll just we've got some time to figure out the next one, but I think you'll be excited.
When you say outpacing, I believe the Hendricks, didn't the Hendricks?
The first 24 hours.
Yeah, so are you saying it's doing that,
The numbers that I've seen, the numbers that we have seen are that it is doing even better.
And we got to our pledge, the $50,000 pledge, within a couple of hours.
Wow.
Is Alex still in the room?
Yeah, that's
I don't know if Alex.
all that's accurate. Yeah, a few hours, got to the pledge number that was put out there for the Bruce Lee Family Foundation and the Wing Luke Museum. That's already been achieved, and it is outpacing the Hendrix kit launch. It's the most successful kit launch in our history.
You mentioned your mother, so is it still Tacoma, or where's your, and she's healthy?
My mom is healthy, thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm the youngest of 5. I have 2 sisters that still live here, and my mother, all in the Gig Harbor area. Yep.
So I have a question for Adrian. On the facilities that you're building here, it says that you said that there is a holistic plan where it is to live, work, and play. Can you go over that a little bit more? Because I'm seeing here that you say housing, recreation, and sports, and more.
Yeah, I don't know that there has been a master plan necessarily released, but I think we've talked about the fact that there will be some thousands of apartments on the campus. There, again, the types of things, there could be hotel, there will certainly be retail. You could imagine different types of retail. There's sporting types of retail, sporting activities. There is entertainment potentially that could be on the campus. Additional types of office uses. So, lots of different possibilities.
Thank
You guys are matching up with the rain for the match. Are there other ways that you want to integrate them, or is that going to be 2 separate businesses? Like, how does that look as far as maybe possibly helping grow the women's game or women in the sport?
Do you want to start with that? Because you've got more experience.
Look, the Reign obviously going through a bit of a transition. New owner, Eagle Holdings, which is a gentleman named John Texter. We're in communication with John, Sophie Savage, who's traditionally run the team. Yes, the answer, Jade, is we would like to figure out more ways to partner, help grow the game, not help grow the game for all of us. Not necessarily the women's game. We want to grow soccer in the region. I think that there are more likely matchups and ways we can work together in the future.
Adrian, you're as passionate owners that are in the league, but the league is definitely changing. The level is raising. The amount of money that's being spent on players being brought in is changing. How do you balance what you're doing and what you've been doing that's worked greatly, and also kind of growing and developing with how the league is growing in its own?
Well, I think we've, probably another quote that Jeremiah at least has heard every year for 12 years or 15 years or 17, however many. We.
You're that old?
In order, great organizations, great teams succeed as a sum of the parts. They are. Individuals don't provide for the success or failure of a team. It's a group effort, and I think that we have done very well as an organization in all the different pieces to the puzzle that are necessary for a team to compete year after year. Scouting, recruiting, welcoming players into the market, coaching, training, supporting families, medical care, managing the budget, providing great sort of guidance, leadership, expectation. So we need to continue to do all of that. I would, again, not expect us to be, we don't endeavor to be the biggest spenders in the market. What we endeavor to do is challenge for championships every year as effectively and efficiently as we can. And then I would marry that back to the very, very beginning, which is that, Hugh is here partially, to help us run a better and better enterprise, better, bigger, that provides increasing amounts of resources to the team to make sure that we stay in a position where we can compete for championships every year. Does that answer it?
Absolutely.
Hugh, do you happen to know the first or most memorable Sounders game, MLS Sounders game that you've been to?
That I've been to. I'll be honest, I've only been to one as a kid. My parents didn't have a lot, and getting to Seattle from South Tacoma was a bit of a stretch, but it was before the Kingdom days. So I can't tell you I remember one moment. I typically would go with a bunch of friends as opposed to my dad, and that's typically your story. But again, I've been to thousands of different sporting events, but the ones that happen when you're 8 years old are those ones you kind of like that stick out. And so I do remember going, as well as, Breakers and Thunderbird games and whatever. It was just all kind of being a sports fan here. So again, when Adrian called, what it was, when you were contemplating buying the team and said that you were buying it, it was kind of interesting, before it was the MLS day, so.
Did you follow the progression, like from those days to the NASL all the way to MLS?
No, I haven't lived in this area for a while, but I do remember, when Adrian and I first started talking about his desire to get engaged and involved and to buy the Sounders, his ideas and plans and how he was doing it. So in some ways, I kind of feel like I've been watching this for 20-some years, but no, I wasn't. At that point, I was a little bit distracted. Remember, I think the Seahawks came in and Mariners came in. It was a really kind of the renaissance of Seattle and sports is when I was a kid. All those things were happening.
So does this mean you're a Kraken fan now?
No, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there on that. What's that?
I saw you at the Devils.
Yeah, so
Kraken game.
truth be told, I've been pretty involved with helping build the Devils, and they're one of the better teams in the league right now. So I still have an emotional pull to people for them to do well. But if they're playing the Kraken, of course, then I'll come up with a different plan.
Just because of the NBA background, is there any time to help bring the Sonics back? I just gotta ask.
Here's my cue, Jaden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that it would be, listen, I have no knowledge. I would just be super honored to be part of it.